We're going to, Anthony, you ready? We're going to open the special meeting of the Plain Township Board of Trustees along with Canton City Council representation. It is 6:05. Let the record note we are waiting just for a few additional representatives to show up, and as soon as they're here, we'll reconvene for the public hearing regarding a mutual economic development agreement. We're going to reconvene here. I'm going to ask everybody to stand as we say the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would like to welcome everybody out tonight, just so we can introduce our peers from the fine city of Canton. I'm going to start to my left and go to my right. Ward 7.
Ward 7. Yeah.
Councilman John Mariel. We've got Councilman at Large, Mr. Bill Schmuckler. We've got Majority Leader, Councilman Frank Morris. That's correct.
Thank you.
And then to my right, we've got Chief of Staff, Mr. Fonda Williams. And on the far end, we have Mr. Sam Slyman, Economic Development. Is there, what's the proper?
Director of
Annexation and Jen C to C.
that's right.
Okay.
Okay, I don't like to use that word annexation in township.
Good thing we got the eject button on that.
We got the button down here.
But I do know Jason Reese is actually in transit, so he may be joining us here in just a few minutes, and Fonda's representing the mayor here this evening. As far as just for a brief summary for those who are in the crowd, tonight's meeting's been a culmination of efforts for literally the last close to a year, 10 to 12 months, and given the initial plans of a four-way agreement that never materialized, we're here now because we've got a partner, or mutual partnership, in being able to move forward on opportunities and making our region an area stronger. Specifically, what we're looking to discuss here this evening is a mutual economic development agreement where it's designating a specific area of the township that we're looking to work with the city of Canton, and engagements that are mutually beneficial. As part of this process, we do have a public speaks session, and what we're going to do is we're going to afford anybody who's here who wishes to address the board and the council first to speak and address this body. The folks we'd ask for first to speak would be anybody who is in opposition to the agreement, which has been available, I believe, in both the city of Canton as well as Plain Township's offices for review. That being said, is there anybody here this evening that wishes to address the collective entities of the city of Canton and the Plain Township Board of Trustees in opposition to the proposed mutual economic development agreement? If so, we just ask that you state your name and your address for the record. No one in opposition. Okay, as far as, we'll close that portion. As far as anybody that wishes to address the collective entity in support of the mutual economic development agreement as currently drafted, is there anybody here that wishes to speak to it? Again, silence is sort of unknown territory.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I will say this, that when we did this with Jackson, it was the exact same thing. There was no one in opposition. In Jackson Township, when we entered into their agreement, some, it's been over 2 years ago now. And so, very similar circumstances.
Well, what I'd like to do, given we don't have any collective thoughts or questions from the public, is just open up the dialogue between, obviously, the township as well as the City of Canton representatives. I know we've all been down the road really with a lot of this language, except now it's revised down to 2 parties, and essentially some of the changes are really in the defined area that we're going to target collectively, but then as well the splits within the different revenue sources that are outlined within the agreement. Is there anybody?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to ask to see if we can get the law director, for those that haven't been involved in the initial discussions with the language, maybe even for the record, to go through maybe some highlights of the agreement for the record.
Sure.
And, also, a question that I know that we discussed as a board, the possibility of a minor amendment to this. Can this be done to this, or is that this draft language the way?
Actually, I talked to Mr. Hawes about that, and I think that concern has been addressed by the language as it exists.
Okay, perfect.
So I think we're okay.
All right.
But to answer your first request there, Mr. Giavasis, basically what I'll do is just kind of give you the thumbnail sketch. I won't be too long. I think we all that are sitting here have a pretty good understanding. This is the proverbial dead horse, so I won't beat it. The agreement started as a 4-way agreement, as we know, with the City of Canton, Jackson Township, North Canton, and ourselves. As North Canton became a player that was out of the mix, we looked over a 3-way agreement, which was going to be Jackson, ourselves, and Canton. Realizing the good folks at the City of Canton already have a deal in place with Jackson, we basically just mirrored that. When we sat down with some Canton officials, I think it was early in March or so, we came to the realization that instead of limiting this simply to the corridor down by Whipple and Everhard that we've been talking about, we thought it would be a good idea to expand it, especially north into the township, particularly from the township side. I'll certainly let the city speak for themselves, but the township side to make use of some of the economic development tools that are available to the city and not to us in areas like this right behind us is a great example of a place where we may be able to partner at some point. So we expanded it to encompass a large portion actually of Plain Township. That's what we're here today to talk about. As far as the revenue splits go, obviously when we went into this we knew that we'd be responsible for the majority of the services. We already do that. From the Plain Township side of things, that will continue. The only thing that will change is now as we hopefully can attract some new businesses, we can get some additional tax revenue in those areas. The big carrot from our perspective was being able to share somewhat in the income tax that the City of Canton collects. And that's currently at 2% for both corporate and individual. Get that right? So that is a 50-50 split now that North Canton is kind of out of the mix, instead of a third, a third, a third. So that's what made sense to us at the time. That's what you have in front of you. In terms of, I know that we have a resolution you can either bring to the table or do at our next meeting. That's completely up to the board, but that's what we're looking at this evening.
I think just as far as for public clarification, Mr. Simon, would you care to address maybe some of the economic development tools that the city has to offer versus that of the township? Because I know within the township, literally outside being able to leverage, say, to having a
CRA,
a community reinvestment area and an enterprise zone, that's really the limitation of the economic development tools we have here. So I think maybe you could shed.
Certainly. First of all, we have water, and water is a huge resource that the City of Canton has. Our water system currently has the capacity to pump 92 million gallons a day. But our entire water district, which encompasses not only Canton, but many parts of Plain, Jackson, Perry, in the Nipissing, and in the Osnaburg Township, where we have a CETA with them, we only pump around 30 million. So our capacity is virtually unlimited. The City of Canton could probably, if need be, water the entire county, so that we have a plentiful, safe, fresh supply of water that we can offer to any industry or business that comes in. Secondly, and the mayor has indicated that the City of Canton has a 20-person economic development department. And currently what happens is when a company comes in, we show them the properties that are in Canton and we show them the properties that are in Jackson, because we have this agreement with Jackson. And the one service that we would provide is that we have a sitting city treasurer, and the treasurer would administer the taxation, collect the taxes, and split them between us and Jackson. And hopefully we'll do the same between us and Plain if this passes. So we would do that part of the deal. But what the city would provide is the collection of possible candidates to come in Plain Township and help develop the commercial areas of Plain. I know Plain's very touchy about zoning, which is a great thing. You don't want to mess up any of your good neighborhoods, but the commercial areas like the law director just indicated, right behind us here, would be a prime source for us to start on and try and bring that back to bring it back to life. And I think the 2% tax has always been a divisive thing, but when we consider how much money we send to Columbus in state taxes and Washington in federal taxes, 2% is not really that much, especially when you see the results. You see Plain Fire right there in front of you, their street department, things of that nature. So the 2% tax it's an investment that's well worth the commitment of paying that taxes. Now, our economic development department answers to our chief of staff, mayor's chief of staff, Mr. Williams, and if he wants to maybe expound upon what I said, you might want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, Director Slyman pretty much hit it on the head with the various incentives that we have, but if I could just take a minute and just talk about process, I think it's really important that we really focus on process. And what I specifically mean about that is when we have opportunities to bring companies in, it's very important that the City of Canton is not soliciting property owners in Plain Township. From a process standpoint, the first phone call will be to one of the trustees or your designee, could be your law director, talk about the opportunity at hand and then work together to close the deal, if you will. I know that question was asked, and I know it was a question mark among some of the press that who have you solicited already? And the answer is absolutely no one. That would be, from a process standpoint, we would do that jointly. And in my opinion, personally, it has to be done that way for us to have a successful meetup.
Any additional questions or discussion points by council members from the city of Canton? Mr. Smothler?
Yeah, I'd just like to make a point. In 2008, we did pass the Jackson Township, and every council member sponsored it. Every council member voted for it. And this has been a sense where we've decided that annexation is necessary sometimes, but it's more of a thing of the past, and it's time to start cooperating, working together with the townships rather than have an antagonistic view. And those of you that know me know that this has been my nameplate of trying to work out agreements and cooperate rather than have an antagonistic view. And I would hope with the majority leader's help and with the mayor's help that we pass this as soon as possible from the city standpoint.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Morris?
Yes, thank you. Yes, Member Schmuckler, we will move aggressively to pass this, and I agree with Councilman Schmuckler when he says annexation is a thing of the past. We're all dealing with limited resources, and annexation would just completely spread us out even further. And rather than make enemies with our neighbors, it's a lot better for us to really start working together. It was disappointing that North Canton pulled out. It was shown that county was coming together, but I'm glad to see that we worked so hard to keep this moving forward with or without them. And I hope this leads to a lot of economic growth in the region. I think it's about time we all start working together and prove our constituents wrong that government can work and can work together. So, we're on board.
Mr. Chairman, if I can just add one additional comment that kind of piggybacks on Member Smucker and Member Morris's comments, and also Director Slime's. When we talk about the city of Canton having a 20-member team in terms of economic development, I really want to go on record and say that includes members of City Council, Canton City Council. They are actively involved in all of our dealings, and I just want to go on record to say that. So it's not necessarily the same members all the time, but I can assure you our City Council is actively involved with bringing businesses to town. So I think it's appropriate to go on record to talk about that. So that 20-member team can easily go to 25 to 30 in any day of the week. So.
Now we take a look at, we're expounding somewhat indirectly that team by what we can be coming to you guys with. So, Councilman Merrill, did you have any?
My colleagues on City Council and Chief of Staff, Director Slyman, what they said I am in 100% agreement with, and I think it's not only a good thing for Plain Township, Canton, but for all of Stark County having a regional mindset. So I'm very excited about the prospect of this going through, and hopefully we'll see a lot of activity from this.
I do want to make one comment, and this is because of an email that I got from a resident on this, sort of caught me off guard, but I want the record to reflect it. Specifically, I had a resident express concern that, well, ultimately, by entering into this mutual economic development agreement, we can end up paying a city income tax. Let's be clear, this is on all new commercial business engagements. There is no intent or underlying purpose here to all of a sudden thrust upon Plain Township residents a city income tax. I know, just sitting here at the table with everybody who's here, that's never been a part of it, but I just want, for the public's sake, the fact that I even received a single communication on it, that's not the purpose. It wasn't even the purpose when we was looking at this as a potential four-way. So again, it's about collaborating, stretching our resources further, given the significant impact we've all faced with reductions in, whether it's local government funding or it's elimination of the state tax and so on. Revenue sources that have allowed us to do other things in the past that aren't necessarily as plentiful or available now. Are there any additional comments by the collective entities?
If I could, Chairman, two points. With the exception of Canton Township, Plain Township and Canton, City of Canton are inextricably linked. Our borders are miles long. We share the same municipal court, and we share most of Plain, I think, who has municipal water, mostly Canton water, some North Canton, but mostly Canton. So we believe that Canton Township, and then Plain Township, we could be a real economic force that could keep our young people here. And I think that's an important thing. 5 or 6 children, I want my kids to be here, have the opportunity to be here and stay here after they go to college. The second thing I want to bring out is I want to comment on Trustee Geovasis. He and I have not always seen eye to eye throughout the years, but Lou has always proven loyal. If he tells you something, it's the truth, and he's always forward-looking, and I appreciate that, Lou. That you really, at the meeting with Mayor Healy, you guys looked beyond the what was directly in front of us and looked to the next generation. I'd also like to thank your law director, Mr. Williams, and our own assistant law director, Jason Reese, for putting this together. Mr. Williams, you were great, and getting the documents to Jason and myself, and we appreciate that too. But I want to thank, and I don't mean to ignore the trustee Lino or trustee Hodge, because you guys are part of it as well, but Lou's like we're so close, it's sometimes disturbing, isn't it?
Eric Williams said earlier, I don't want to beat a dead horse, because pretty much a lot of this has been played out and talked about in the meeting and everything, and the intentions of the agreement. But the sole intention of this agreement, this is an agreement to agree right now. And that's the first step. And we don't, a lot of people are wondering what's going to happen here, but we need to make sure that we keep that dead horse in that cart in a proper perspective behind one another the way they should be. I want to thank Trustee Hawes and Trustee Lino, because they both have put countless hours into this. I just so happened to be the one during the initial negotiations that happened to work with the City of Canton, while Scott was working with the other entity at the same time. But I mean, this is the fruition of two communities coming together, like Mr. Slyman said, putting the tasks in the past where they belong. We haven't always agreed eye to eye, but in the long run, we were able to still sit down at the tables, even in those instances, and still work out agreements that were beneficial for both sides. And I just think this is just the next step in the process of bringing both communities forward for the betterment of both, for job creation, and to also augment our own individual budgets in light of some of the cuts that have been taking place coming from Columbus. It's not the sole intention of this agreement, but we have to call it like it is. We live in a day and age that we're all budget driven. We're all concerned about that. We have to find a way of augmenting our budgets without raising taxes on our individual residents. And this is the way to do that. You know, our residents are getting to the point where property tax driven, you guys are income tax driven. We have to find a way to do this without, first of all, taxing our residents out of their houses. And this is a way that we can make up some of those cuts without the necessity to increase taxes. That's the most important thing. And aside from that, we thank the City of Canton administration for their hours and hard work that they put into this too. And I'm looking forward to getting this part of the agreement in place and sitting down in the very near future and starting to identify some areas that we may be interested in. The other thing for the record is, like Scott said, this isn't going to involve just, it can involve residential properties, but even the business community, the business entities, they have to agree to it. We can't force this on them. They're going to have to agree to the agreement before they're going to sign on. And it's going to be up to us to put an economic development package together or an incentive package together to make it economically feasible for them to join in. So, you know, we could create 1,000 jobs from this in the future. We might not create any, but this is a starting point.
Do we have anything else under comments? Okay. Seeing no additional comments by representatives from the City of Canton or the Plain Township, will close out that. We're going to move to the new business, where we do have specific to Plain Township a resolution before us for our consideration. And I'm going to make a motion that it be hereby resolved by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to agree to enter into the mutual economic development agreement between the City of Canton and the Plain Township Board of Trustees attached here too.
I'll second that.
Discussion. I think our prior comments probably reflect everything here. So I'm going to ask for a roll call. Mr. Flax.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Geovasis?
Yes.
That completes new business. That'll take us to adjournment. So I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we adjourn this special meeting at 6:37 p.m. Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Geovasis?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.